Well, Dina, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this, and I have realized that you are a skilled interviewer, and I so appreciate the questions that you ask and the thoughtfulness with which you conduct these interviews because I've had other interviews and now I realize that, yeah, you have a skill set that not everyone has. So I wanted to just affirm that in you, that you have that.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Dina, for inviting me because I truly believe in what you're doing. I love supporting everything that you do here with the magazine and your podcast and everything that you do because you've really created a wonderful community and network for people, that are resources for people going through this experience and they can often feel alone. And so for you to create that community, I think is just so important. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me here and letting me be a part of it. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Dina Court, and this is the Life Changes Channel podcast. Now, in today's episode, we have a guest that's returning from BridgePoint Financial, Tim Andrews, and he's going to talk to us during one of our online support groups about different financing solutions that are available to help you through bridging between when your divorce is settled, as well as if you are settling an estate and you have expenses to deal with the loss and the estate prior to it being settled. So it's very interesting about what is available for your options, and what a great way to help families when they're going through difficult times, whether it is divorce or a loss, and just knowing that there is some peace of mind in being able to access finances that can help you and support you through this. So let's meet Tim and hear what he has to say about this.
So, welcome, Tim. I am pleased that you are going to be able to offer some information to us today that will just be, I think, a relief to a lot of people that there is assistance for them to get through some of these really tough times, like divorce. Or I also mentioned in the event information that this can also help in estates when you're trying to deal with an estate. So if you can touch on both of those topics today, I think, and any others that come to mind in how BridgePoint can help, that's going to be phenomenal. And I'm really excited to hear what questions we have from our guests as well, because, you know, there's a lot of challenge involved in these situations, and sometimes we just feel lost. So that's what we're here to do, is give people some answers, give them some options so they don't just feel like it's completely hopeless. So welcome, Tim. Let's jump in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dina. I actually put together a presentation that will allow me to kind of go through both of our offerings, and then I'm happy to provide that to any of the attendees afterwards, if that sounds good to you.
That's perfect.
Okay, I'll just share my screen.
Oh, let me set that up. There we go. And for anybody who's listening on the podcast, be sure and hop over to our YouTube channel, because you will then be able to see this slide presentation that Tim is talking about, but you will still get a lot out of listening to it as well.
Oh, so thank you very much. I'll go through the presentation. I won't go into detail on some of the slides, but please interrupt me with any questions, or we can cover those after the presentation. We're going to run through our family and estate solutions today. But just before we get started, just a brief introduction to BridgePoint. We specialize in the legal finance market and have been doing so since 2005. So where our niche is that we offer sort of innovative and flexible solutions that are designed to address sort of specific funding needs within the legal space, where traditional lenders like banks aren't able to assist. The primary legal markets that we work in are family law, wills and estates, personal injury, class action, and expropriation. And we also work in Indigenous law. Just some numbers to put our business in perspective, since 2005, we've funded $450 million in over 50,000 cases. We've got relationships with over 1,500 law firms across the country. Our company is just over 45 people, and we've got 150 years of combined legal experience on our team. And we've been voted, we'll be going on 10 years now, top legal finance company by Canadian Lawyer magazine.
That's impressive.
No, thank you. It's a fantastic company, and it's all about innovation. And it started with a real access to justice perspective, which we definitely see in family law. I'm going to jump into sort of the family law solution that we have. And for a number of listeners, they'll be familiar with these, but some of the factors that contribute to the financial challenges during the divorce or separation process is, number one would be, equity is tied up in the matrimonial property. Investment accounts are locked until settlement. There's a requirement for alternate living arrangements. There's private mediation or arbitration costs. There's no access to common financial assets. And one party is either a lower or non-income earner, which puts them at a significant disadvantage during the process. And then there's things like disbursement costs, including expert reports and business evaluations. So we know what those financial challenges are. How do they impact the outcome of the divorce process? Well, the number one issue is access to justice or access to counsel. And that's specifically when one party is financially disadvantaged. And then the other party and their counsel can use that to their advantage within negotiations and the entire process. So this really does provide that access to counsel piece of the puzzle. With uncertainty with regards to funds, it's a real start and stop. And that can really increase the cost and the duration of the file. And it really disrupts the law firm's file management as well. So you're really not, being able to capitalize on the momentum that your lawyer is trying to build so that you can, have a separation agreement and move on with your life. And then there's all the added stress and conflict due to the inability to cover things like living expenses, care for children, and then, the lack of funds to secure alternate living arrangements where people are trapped in the same house as the other party. And this is especially true when there needs to be an escape from domestic abuse. So our product sort of answers a lot of those issues. And the whole premise is to get your divorce or separation over the finish line. And our funding solution essentially acts as an advance on that eventual entitlement, and it allows you to access funds that you'll eventually receive from assets such as the family home. And these can be used to assist with those things that we've just covered, including legal fees, disbursement costs, and personal and living expenses. So just a brief Google review. So BridgePoint Financial helped me through a lengthy and difficult divorce process. Thanks to them, I was able to cover my legal fees, everyday expenses, and overdue bills, which really helped during a very challenging time in my life. I want to briefly go over some of the features and benefits of the family law finance solution. So repayment is not required until the divorce is finalized and funds are released, no matter how long that takes. And during that time, there's no servicing on the loan. There's no monthly payments required. There's no credit check or proof of income required. And that's simply because we don't require those for our underwriting. A lot of it's based on things like the matrimonial home and the eventual entitlement. And once the application is approved, funds can be made available within 24 hours of approval. One area that I'd like to cover as well is that the advance can be structured for whatever the client's specific needs are. So if it's a lump sum to pay off something or to pay off a legal bill. But what we really recommend is a line of credit, because you're not paying interest on it and you can use it as you need it. It's something that you can get earlier on in the process when you've got enough information required for both the lawyer and our underwriting. It allows you to proceed with the separation process, knowing that you do have that in your back pocket, and that you're able to continue with the process without any interruption. And this really alleviates the financial stress from the proceedings, and ensures that sort of a timely resolution, and starting a positive new beginning. And then one other key feature is the people. We've got an amazing legal team, and we work very closely with both the person who's going through the separation and divorce, as well as their lawyer. We want to make it a very stress-free, simple process, and like to do a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that there's no stress, and because you're already going through a very difficult time in your life. We've got a very dedicated support team. We're open all the time and available for both you and the lawyer. Another Google review. With our family home sold and proceeds in trust, I needed money to purchase a new place for my son and I, as my parents did not have room for both of us. Thanks to BridgePoint, I was able to purchase a home and cover expenses while waiting for my divorce to be finalized. And just briefly on the process, again, we keep it very, very simple, do a lot of the legwork behind the scenes. But it just starts with a simple online application, and then we will reach out for any additional details. We'll get in touch with the lawyer and request any additional file information and documentation that our team requires to underwrite the file. We do a full review of that completed application, all the details and documentation by our team. And then once approved, the loan documents are provided and a direction sent to the lawyer. And then repayment is made typically via the law firm's trust account when the file is resolved. Just to sort of bring this to life, I do have two case studies. One leans more towards covering living expenses, and the other leans towards more the legal fees. So in this first one, sort of the facts of the case study are the parties were still living together in the matrimonial home. However, domestic abuse was present. The female partner, or the wife, was unable to move or retain a lawyer to commence the separation process, as she was on disability. It did not have extra funds available to her. The parties had significant assets, including 2 properties which were jointly owned and a couple of different investment accounts. So with regards to litigation, the borrower was able to secure a loan, which allowed her to move into her own apartment and retain a lawyer who began the separation and disclosure process. The lawyer was able to assist with the commencement of spousal support, and the borrower was able to escape domestic abuse. So with regards to the funding, we provided a lump sum, a loan of $10,000, and then $5,000 was provided directly to the borrower, and $5,000 was provided directly to the lawyer in trust for his initial retainer fees. In the second case study, this was more for legal fees. So the facts of the matter are the borrower and her husband jointly owned a business and a matrimonial home. After separation, the borrower was unable to continue working in the business due to animosity and became unemployed, which inhibited her ability to retain a lawyer due to a lack of funds, and was also unable to pay for business evaluation and private mediation fees. So that's the disbursement side of things, where things can get quite costly during the process. So with regards to funding, we provided it to pay for legal fees. And that was able to move the matter closer to resolution, and the borrower was able to secure a loan for those legal fees to pay for a business evaluation and the mediation fees, which expedited the resolution of the issues. I can answer any questions now, or we can jump into the estates portion, and I can answer any questions afterwards, whatever you'd prefer, Dina.
Well, if anybody does have questions, either unmute yourself, please, or drop it in the comments. One thing I wanted to ask Tim, and I know I did ask this when you were on the podcast before, was if people are curious whether this is an option for them, can they go ahead and fill out an application, and then that can be discuss. There's no commitment at that point. They're just exploring their options.
Exactly. So we can definitely get in touch and discuss the file. There's no obligations with that application. It just provides our legal team enough information just to open the file and begin the conversation. But yes, there's no commitment at all, and we actually encourage that because it's so much easier to have those conversations and sort of discuss options moving forward and making sure you've got the full picture.
And if they don't currently have a lawyer, this is something that is part of the process because their payments will go to interest. This money can be used for those legal fees. And when the loan with BridgePoint is paid out, it comes out of the proceeds of the divorce once that settlement is reached, and that is handled by their lawyer, correct?
That's correct. Everything goes through the lawyer's trust account. And just touching upon that, sometimes people may be looking toward a decent entitlement or equalization payment, but sometimes the way things happen, they may not even have the funds for initial retainer. So we can always provide a small loan up front, just with the information at hand to at least cover that retainer cost. So that the file can be opened. And then once that's open, we have, and there's you go through disclosure and we have those additional details, then we can look at, the bigger picture and if funds are required beyond that, we can look at some options there as well.
We do have a question. Are these services for people that are in the divorce process currently? What if it's already happened and someone is needing some legal support to reopen or review?
Yeah, so we can definitely look at that. So typically most of the files that we have are during the process, not once a separation agreement's in place or a divorce has been finalized, but we can certainly look at that as, especially if it has to do with litigation. But I would encourage any of the ones that kind of fall outside of that area to get in touch with us, and the head of our family law on our legal team would be happy to have the conversation with both the client and the lawyer.
Amazing. Thank you. So let's dive into estate
Estates,
funding solutions.
So estates actually falls, there's three categories to our estates funding solutions, and they're designed for three distinct scenarios. So starting off with executors or trustees, as they're referred to in Ontario, there can be a lot of financial burden for that particular individual. So we provide an expense advance. So this removes that financial burden that comes with administrating an estate. So these are commonly leveraged to cover legal and probate fees. Again, probate fees are not as big an issue in Alberta as they are in a lot of other provinces. But there's also estate debts and commitments, whether it's mortgage payments on the property or maintenance, things like funeral costs. And then one area that we've seen used very strategically is maximizing the value of the estate. So in one example, this was actually a property in Saskatchewan. The inherited property was valued at about $500,000. But the real estate agent had recommended to the executor that if they were to do $100,000 in renovations, that they would be able to put the place on the market for $800,000. So they approached BridgePoint. We provided a loan of $100,000 on the estate. They went through the renovations and were actually able to sell it for $1.2 million.
Wow.
So there were three beneficiaries. So by going through that and strategically maximizing the value of the estate, they were able to, over double the inheritance for each of those three beneficiaries. So there's a strategic way of leveraging them too. It's not just, if you find yourself in a difficult position as an executor.
Well, and funeral expenses are far higher than people realize.
Right. And
multiple thousands.
Yeah.
Alone.
And if funds are held in trust, then it comes out of the pocket of the executor unless they're able to get an advance via the estate to cover those off. So the second one is a pretty straightforward solution. It's for beneficiaries, and it's our inheritance advance. So this is a solution when the funds are coming, but waiting isn't an option. So this is structured as an advance on the eventual inheritance, and typically we're finding people are using it to pay down debt. They don't want to wait a couple of years. They've got some car payments or credit cards, and they just want to be done with it. They can get an advance, take care of all of that. And we've also seen a number of people use it for timely investments. The biggest one being obviously a down payment on a new home. And then people just want the money now. Whether it's for a variety of personal reasons. But again, it's an advance. And then it's simply repaid when the state funds are released. And then the third one is litigation. So this is our estate litigation funding. And this provides the financial means to retain counsel. And this is also can be an access to justice issue as well. So this funding option can be used for legal fees and personal expenses incurred during litigation. And it's commonly related to will challenges and any estate related disputes. So those are the three areas that we can assist, and we've especially seen on the estate litigation funding side there has been a cross section with family law as well.
Can you tell us more about that? When there's a cross section with them.
Yeah, so we've got some case studies as well, but sometimes what can happen is if there are if there has been multiple marriages, for example, and not an updated will, or there have been multiple relationships, and one of the parties passes away, they can contest the will. So in that regard, we're seeing estate litigators and family litigators working together for the resolution of some of those files. And those can be it doesn't have to just be marriage, it can be common law as well. But we do see a number of those that they're becoming more and more evident. There's also when there have been multiple marriages with multiple different children from each marriage as well. That can also lead to disputing the will and also disputing the sort of the allocation of the inheritance as well. So it really does complicate things, and that's when you see sort of estate litigators and family litigators working together for the resolution of those files.
That does get complicated, and the fact that you've got an experienced team that is able to deal with some of those legal aspects, it's encouraging.
Yeah, so we've got on our legal team, we've got people that specifically work in family law and estates, and in cases like that, they would collaborate and work together with the lawyers as well to ensure that we can put together a solution for that particular scenario.
Very encouraging. And unfortunately, a lot of times when people get in these situations, it's just totally overwhelming. They're dealing with either a divorce or a death or loss of some kind, and grief in all cases, and just totally unaware of what they are expecting. Even if people have been approached to be an executor, or I believe it's called a representative now or something like that in Alberta, and they changed the terms, but it's something to really think about. Do I have the capacity for that? Do I want to take that on? Am I going to have the resources to do that? Inform yourself around that. And if you already are and you're in the thick of it, well, knowing that there is support. And I'm interested to have learned the different ways this can be applied, this assistance.
Yeah, I mean, it can be used, sometimes people find themselves in a difficult situation, and then they just need to find a path out of there. And typically that revolves around finances, but it's also using it strategically, like we talked about earlier, when you can make that initial investment in the property. A lot of people are inheriting, a home or a property, and even though it's being lovingly maintained, it may not be up to date and it may not, do as well on the market. So that putting in a bit of an investment there up front can really realize, a bigger return for the beneficiaries.
Amazing.
I won't
Go
run,
ahead.
I won't run through all of these, but I do I do pull a few of the messages that we receive in our applications and the additional information. And of course, I've removed any personal information, but I find it, it's very interesting to hear why clients are applying in their own words. And again, I won't run through all of these. I'll leave this for the listeners to have a look at. But we touched upon the one on the right, but just at the top there, this is a common one. I'm looking for an advance to pay for the assessment of the estate's farmland, legal fees, and possibly probate fees. I cannot cover the cost myself and require assistance. So very, very common scenario there, because outside of the financial responsibilities, it's I've heard it's one of the toughest jobs as being an executor on an estate, especially if it's a complex estate. So we can at least take the financial burden away from that particular responsibility. I've got the same thing for some of our beneficiary clients here. I'll just pick the first one here. I desperately need an advance on my inheritance to put toward a down payment on a home for my family. The probate process is taking too long for funds to be released, and I honestly don't want to miss out on this opportunity. So this again is just a timely investment. And again, we're seeing that quite a bit. Our features and benefits are very, very similar to our family law funding ones. So I'll just go through them very briefly. Again, fast, easy, and stress-free process. Once an application is approved, funds can be made available in 24 hours. We have the same options for a lump sum, a line of credit, or even monthly staging options. We only do semi-annual interest compounding, and unlike lines of credit or credit cards where that's compounding monthly. And again, there's no monthly servicing fee, no application fees, and the repayment is only due when the estate is distributed. We can loan up to any amount. We typically base that on the loan to value ratio. So if there's going to be an inheritance of $100,000, we'd look at between 35 and 40% we could do on that particular amount. And again, there's no maximum term. It's just whenever things are resolved and the inheritance funds are released is when we would be repaid.
That answered a question I had, Tim, around what is the dollar amount that people can have access to. And so it is calculated on what the future payment would be, or their settlement, whether it's an estate or a divorce.
Yeah, exactly. So we work to that acronym, the LTV, which is the loan to value ratio. We'd never like to go too high because we want to make sure that, you want there to be funds for that person at the end. You don't want them to max that out. So we like to keep it lower so that they can, they have those resources, whether it's for living expenses or alternate living arrangements or legal fees, with regards to family law. But we never want to extend beyond that. I don't have it in this particular presentation, but we do adhere, we have an internal policy, and it's called our responsible lending promise. So we never ever provide funds on files that lack merit. And because we never want to put someone in a position where they're unable to repay us on, say it's litigation that, they didn't have a strong case, for example. Our underwriters look very closely at that, and we never want to put people in that position. Most of the time things go according to plan, but in the circumstances where they don't, we do work with the borrower to come up with a repayment scheme that kind of works with them. should should things not work out on their end. But just want to make the listeners aware that we do adhere to that, and they're very adamant about that approach because, like I said, we just don't want people to be put in a difficult situation.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
reassuring.
A couple other Google reviews just to put things in perspective. A big thank you to BridgePoint. I needed funds to repair my mother's home while waiting for the probate certificate. The work needed to be done to pass the home inspection for eventual sale. It was excellent service, and as they say, a simple, stress-free process. So that was on. You can see all of these on our Google reviews. The process exactly the same as family law. So the application can be completed by the executor, the beneficiary, or the law firm. Again, we review all the information and documents and reach out to the lawyer for any additional information. And then the documents, so execution of loan documents, including our IAD. And then funding, again, can be made available as a lump sum, line of credit, or staged, and repayments made through the estate solicitor's trust account. So pretty much the similar process as our family law.
It definitely gives people some peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
I know I keep pointing towards that, but that's what it comes down to, is that peace of mind that it's okay. It's going to be okay. There is a way to manage whatever process it is you're trying to deal with, and get through it with less pain and stress, and optimize, like some of the examples you've shared. You can actually optimize the outcome, whether it's keeping the divorce process smoothly going and not stalling and, waiting for other funding to show up so that you can afford to continue that process. And the same with estates, and how, that example with the real estate and improving the value there is amazing as well.
Yeah, it's excellent when that can be leveraged for those sorts of strategies. And again, when people complete that application, we have those conversations. We're very open to bringing sort of ideas to the table, both for the client, but also the lawyer, in order to sort of best navigate the situation. Just another Google review here. Something that is a common theme as well is probate was taking forever. And not only did we have estate bills to deal with, we also needed to use our inheritance for a down payment on a new home. We didn't think we had any options, but then we found BridgePoint. And as with family law, I do have two case studies that I'll briefly go through that sort of illustrate how the estate funds can be used. So this one actually involved the Office of the Children's Lawyer. They were involved on behalf of a minor child whose mother had passed away, leaving behind a mixed family following a second marriage. So this is where family kind of comes in as well. There's a dispute between multiple beneficiaries over the sale of the family home. The child's surviving parent wishes for the child to be maintained in the family home until the end of the school year, which would delay the sale of the property. The other beneficiaries objected, so they were seeking the property to be sold right away. So the OCL supported keeping the family home so the minor child could complete the school year, and they approached BridgePoint to source the funds required to pay home expenses until the property was sold. So we provided a loan that allowed those home-related expenses to be covered, and for a partial interim distribution to the other beneficiaries pending the sale of the property. So that was a solution that we put together for that particular scenario, but it also illustrates how family can be involved with some of the estate files as well. And the second one, it focuses more on legal fees. So the borrower is the daughter of the deceased and was entirely left out of her mother's will. Her male siblings were all included. The borrower lived with her parents rent-free for many years prior to their deaths and had their full financial support in exchange for her full-time caregiving services. The borrower commenced a will challenge, seeking such provisions from the estate as the court thinks adequate, just, and equitable, on the basis that the will did not adequately provision for her proper maintenance and support. So what we provided a loan, and this was a partial lump sum in a line of credit to the borrower, and this was to cover personal expenses and the legal fees pending the resolution of litigation.
So these case studies
Mhm.
are, they really resonate because these are stories of people's lives and how they were impacted either through divorce or dealing with an estate, and the fact that they had this option made such a big difference for them. And I think it's really relevant to hear examples like that and realize all the different applications of this type of funding.
Right. And in this particular case study, it was a bit of an access to counsel issue because, without that money, she wouldn't have had any recourse to challenge that will. Even though she had been providing and dedicating, her life to caregiving for her parents.
Yeah,
And
difficult
I should
situation.
say I do have a number of case studies for both family law and estates that I'm happy to provide and share with any of your listeners as well.
Perfect. Yeah, we will definitely include all the links in the show notes on the podcast, and people can catch that replay and be able to reach out and learn more, and probably be surprised if they are in a situation they think is impossible, and
Mhm.
find that there there are some options for them.
Absolutely. I should also note that in Canadian Lawyer, we have a number of different articles. So the first two, um, it talks about equal access to legal counsel, and making sure that, because that's an issue, that's a big issue. And a number of the bars speak about it, even now. And so that's covered in that article. And then we've got another article that really talks about pretty much moving these family law files to resolution faster. And like we have talked about, Dina, not having that financial stability really increases the cost, increases the duration and the frustration and stress of the process. So that really touches upon that. And then we have two other ones here on our estates product, and one of them specifically talks to strategically maximizing the value of the state. But I would say that, for any of your listeners to contact us at any time, I'm happy to speak to them or anyone on our team, as well as on our legal team. If we need to review any files, we're happy to do so. We've got case studies, articles, and this presentation that we can make available. And just wanted to make sure that, everyone has access to the info, and happy to speak to any of it at any time.
I appreciate that, Tim, and the audience does too. It's exciting to have discovered that there's another option for people to be able to get through this, because, like we mentioned earlier, the finance part is so terrifying, and it actually stalls people, and they'll stay stuck in a situation because they don't know where to turn. They see all the expenses it could entail if they did move forward, and then they just feel stuck. And that can apply to the estates as well as divorce.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And I think that, I did touch upon the three areas. I mean, there are three, significant pain points within each of those in the states. So, just this, I'll call it the more simple inheritance advance. There's a significant portion of the population who are struggling with debt. And if they are awaiting an inheritance that could be a huge help to them, but they don't want to wait a couple of years, like that's a solution that can really assist with that particular pain point. Then there's also on the executor front, you know, being responsible for not only administering the estate, but also, there could be that financial challenge. We can make sure that that is removed. And then in the estate litigation, typically it's an access to counsel or access to justice issue that we can assist with on that front as well. So there's sort of different pain points, we'll call them, within each, but we have a solution that can work with each of them.
So we do have a comment from one of our guests thanking you for the information, and they are going to be in touch with you. to discuss the services that you offer. And if anybody has questions, please feel free to either drop them in the chat.
I just want to jump in here to comment about how encouraging it is to find out this information that Tim is offering, and also to let you know that there are a lot more resources available in our quarterly magazines, Divorce Magazine Canada and Life Changes Magazine, as well as monthly newsletters, a blog, YouTube channel. You can go back and see all the other episodes that we've had on the podcast, as well as the podcast itself, and that's available on all our players. The magazines are digital. You can access them through our website. There's a ton of information and resources around all kinds of aspects of divorce and other major life changes that you might be facing. We also host these online support groups every 2 weeks. So please explore the website, look for all of the information that is there available for you. You aren't alone. We're here to help you through this. I really do encourage you to just take a look through all of them. And it's easy. The links are in the show notes. So we want to help get you hooked up with the information that can really support you. Now, let's get back to talking to Tim.
Around bridge financing to help you through divorce, help you through an estate situation, just to help tie you over. And, there's some really amazing options that are available to help people. Now, Tim, what we were talking about around the qualifying for this financing, can you address situations where it's doubtful what the outcome is going to be, so that they, when their settlement is coming, and how they would, like if they can't be qualified with you, then where else could they turn as well?
Yeah, I mean, typically sort of legal aid resources are sort of the best option if there's not going to be an eventual equalization or an entitlement, because any lender that's able to help needs to be able to secure the loan against something. So if there isn't anything, then there are avenues for assistance via legal aid, depending on the case.
So that's reassuring. It's never completely 100% hopeless. There are ways to get the help that you need. I hope you found that conversation insightful, encouraging, and also a reminder to all of us that what we see isn't always as it appears. People are going through a lot of things in their lives, and we would want that compassion shared to us, and that is something that we can offer to others without judgment. Instead, be curious and reach out, reach in, figure out a way that you can make someone's day a little better, and it might just start with a smile. I thank you very much for spending your time with me here today, and encourage you to please subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, check out our events. We have lots of ways that we can help you or someone that you love. Share this with a friend if there's someone that you know could benefit from this. And hey, keep smiling that beautiful smile, because the world really does need your sunshine. It means a lot that you spend this time with us and meet our experts and professionals who can help you through whatever life changes you're facing. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, lifechangesmag.com. The link is in the show notes. Our disclaimer: Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine and Channel, and divorce resource groups are intended to educate and provide quality, credible resource information. The contents should not be used as factual until consultation with the appropriate professionals for any guidance. Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine, and Life Changes Channel, as well as the divorce resource groups, do not constitute endorsements for, nor liability for any claims made in the presenting of this information.